Neurons. And Dr. Jerry, who was introduced through Karen Justice, has an enormous team right over the world and has also recently done an event on Karen's call and popular demand. People are begging, can we see it again on this call? And that's why we're here today. So with that, I'm going to hand the call to Dr. Jerry. Over to you.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Sergio. Wow, Europe is rocking it. I can't believe all of the rank advancements all over Europe. And that speaks to you and Aaron going to Europe, Sergio. You really orchestrated some fire over there. You lit the fire.
No, thank you.
I love.
It's all these wonderful members. You guys are the stars, and a lot of these wonderful members are from your team. So congratulations to you.
Thank you, man. We really appreciate you. And I know that's travel these days is very trying. So thank you for doing that. That's awesome. Well, I really want to try to recall that call I did with Karen. I did pull up a couple of notes that I did take prior to the call that I did with Karen. And I always deviate a little bit because I never really entirely go off notes. I just kind of let the spirit flow. And I think the basis of that call was, what is our purpose? And I know Karen on that call actually started the call by saying we are a nutraceutical company, not a pharmaceutical company. And in so doing that, we recognize that we don't treat, we don't cure, we don't mitigate disease with our products. But what we do is we support the human body in a way so it can reflect that perfection that is in our own DNA. And that's why it's necessary, especially at this time in history, that there are companies, nutraceutical companies like Numi, companies that actually we can turn to help us support health and wellness. And that is, I think, the foundation of what we need to know going into the world and sharing. We need to know what our place is and how powerful our message is. But on that call with Karen, I talked a little bit about the history and where it turned, really, in my opinion, it turned bad. And it turned bad because of the influence of money. Back at the end of the 1800s, the early 1900s, the first billionaires were appearing on the planet, literally. And one of them, John D. Rockefeller, he controlled 90% of the oil production in the United States. And he was the first billionaire in the United States and possibly in the world. And he wanted to control more industry. So he got his hands into media and he went for pharmaceutical in a big way because it aligned it perfectly with where his real power was, which was oil. And pharmaceutical he saw as being a great avenue to release and build upon his chemical and oil industries. And so they really influenced Congress, they used the media and all of this to basically take over medicine and take over the AMA and take over medical schools, take over curriculum, even buying Congress off and getting them, it sounds a little bit like today, getting them to denounce and make illegal natural medicines. Natural medicine that was proven and stood the test of time for thousands of years was actually demonized and called quackery and was basically made illegal. Doctors were thrown into jail if they didn't fall in line with the new paradigm. Clinics and hospitals were shut down if they didn't, follow that very narrow approach to medicine. Basically, what they were doing was introducing patented substances literally that are foreign to our body. And one of the things that kind of turns me off about all of that and the progression of it was it didn't respect the divine inspiration and the divine creation that this body is. This body is truly a miracle. And even today, with all of the scientific research that's been done, all of the investigations that have gone on throughout history that have been built one layer upon the next, we still don't fully understand all of the inner workings, all of the mechanisms of the human body. And when we introduce something to the human body that's foreign to it, I call it not smart, not intelligence. And what I mean by that is our body has an innate intelligence, an innate knowing of what to do. And traditional medicines always recognize that. Traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, all of the ancient medicines recognized the body was the key. The body was the miracle, and the body is the best instrument we have at striking that balance, of creating that balance and creating that wellness. So what really all of those ancient medicines did was support that normal function. And they had great results. In fact, in ancient China, if you got sick, you fired your doctor. Your doctor was further required to put up a flag saying that he had a patient that got sick so that people wouldn't go see that doctor. It was all about health and wellness and keeping people strong and healthy and well, because it was purely understanding the inner workings of this body and supporting that. And that deviation, what happened with that deviation? It wasn't positive, because if you look at where we've come from, health and wellness right now in this country, we spend way more money than any other industrialized country in the world. In fact, we spend more money than the top 10 other next companies combined. We spend $4.9 trillion in 2023. Trillion. 1 trillion is a million. It's a huge number. And we spent 4.9 trillion. That's $14,570 per person in the United States on healthcare. Somebody's spending my $15,000 because I didn't spend it. And what does that give us? You'd think, wow, the United States has the best wellness outcomes in the world because they're spending way more money than anybody else, but it's not true. We rank 48th in life expectancy. In fact, you could live longer if you lived in Panama, on average, according to the statistics. Panama, Albania, Czech Republic, Oman, Kuwait, we're just below all of those countries. The top countries are actually Hong Kong, Japan, and South Korea. And there's a lot of traditional medicine practiced in those countries. So there's still massive respect for this organism and bringing balance to this organism, to this person, to this individual, all the human beings, looking in there and seeing how we can support those functions. Infant mortality rate in the United States is one of the worst in the world. Infant mortality rates. You have a way better chance of your baby surviving childbirth if you're in a third world country than in the United States. So it's a very telling statistics. All of this is that we're doing something wrong. Something is not right here. But fortunately, these days it's turning around. I have a lot of friends, practicing doctors, very skilled physicians, and they know that there's a stranglehold on their profession. They know that the lobby, the medical and pharmaceutical lobby in Washington, is 2 times that of the oil industry. It's the largest lobby in Washington. Most money changes hands from lobbies into the hands of people making laws, from people involved in the medical and pharmaceutical industries than any other industry in the world. So it's all about power. It's all about money. And that's what it's come down to. The money has been more important than actually health and wellness. And my doctor friends know that. And so they really want to get away from sickness care, because that's what it is. It's actually making a diagnosis and being held to the standard of care of that diagnosis, which is pharmaceutical care up to a point, and then possible surgical intervention. And if you look at the statistics of what's happening in the wellness arena, considered in this country compared with other countries, it's abysmal. So fortunately, we have, as a community of people, we have something that we can share that's part of that new paradigm. And doctors are recognizing the necessity for a new paradigm because they know what's happening, they can see what's happening, and it's even accelerated over the last few years. In fact, life expectancy is going backwards. And that started to happen in the last, let's say, about 10 years. And it's been postulated that our children will not live as long as us. Our grandchildren could live only about 2/3 of how long we live if we continue this same trajectory. We're already, the life expectancy is going down, and it's already past where we were in 1999, because it always went up at the beginning of the last century. You know, breakthroughs in sanitation, et cetera, caused, you know, less disease to happen, and our life expectancy went up, 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 up. And then, you know, people became health aware, those kind of things, exercise, you know, good diet, those kind of things are kind of stabilized out, going up. Now it's going backwards, and it's going backwards quite rapidly. So the demand for something to support the human being is great, just so you know that. So if you're talking to friends, you're talking to family members, you're talking to people that actually need to hear your message. I think that's the important thing to keep near and dear to your heart. You have something that people need to hear about. And that's the thing to remember, because that puts you on a mission, that you're part of a cutting edge mission to get out there in front of people and help them understand. So what is, you know, we have glutathione, and that's the huge attraction, was a huge attraction for me to come to NUMMI. And you know, what is glutathione? What's it do? And we all know, and we've been to many, many calls with Stephen Scott, and we know it's the primary antioxidant. It's the most powerful antioxidant our body has, more powerful even than catalase superoxide dismutase, the other ones that our body makes. It's a mucolytic, so if we're producing too much mucus, which is often the case, like let's say a sinus infection or allergies or something, it's a mucolytic, so it helps to clear that excess mucus. It helps to regulate immune system function. How does it do that? Well, it supports a huge support with liver function. And the liver produces the precursors for the second line of defense. But even the first line of defense, which is our membranes, you know how you spray your face and your face, you know, looks better and looks younger? Inside, the gut is a first line of defense. So it's the skin. All of the exterior barriers of our body are the first line of defense. Keeps bad things out, lets some of the good things in. So you want the gut doing that, and you want the gut healthy. Glutathione is very, very good for healthy gut function. The next thing that happens is if the gut's not healthy, now you overload the liver and you burden the immune system, because the immune system becomes active with the second line of defense, which are called macrophages. They're lymphocytes and leukocytes that gobble up the foreign things that manage to get through the gut or manage to sneak in through the barrier somehow. So you've got these things in your blood gobbling those up. Those become large molecules. This gut gobbling this is a large molecule that gets carried to where? The liver. So the liver has to break it down and get rid of the pieces and start over again, because it's the thing that creates the precursors for the things that gobble things up. So the liver is running overtime trying to produce enough of those kinds of things, and at the same time 600 total functions that the liver does, and running usually behind at what it's supposed to be doing. And if you're running behind or overworked, you don't do as good a job as you should. So in this country, livers are struggling. Well, the liver is the other organ that is very important and very valuable to have adequate glutathione levels. In fact, glutathione is most found in the liver of any liver cells, the hepatocytes. That's where you find most of the glutathione as opposed to other cells. So in the immune system, when the little gobble up things start running low, what happens is the body starts to realize it needs to send out the third line of defense. The third line of defense are T cells and B cells. They're made in the thymus gland, right here behind your sternum in your chest. They're manufactured there, but they're a unique thing, a T cell. They have the ability to recognize. So if there's enough reaction going on where they actually target the cell and kill it, if enough of that is happening, they will build a template for the protein of that particular invader. So now it doesn't have to build those, it just produces them, it just manufactures them. So it can produce a lot more, a lot faster. But if there's a lot of those things in the blood, what happens? Your T cells start running low. Now you have two of them. You have Th1 and Th2. Th1 is supported by glutathione. So if you don't have enough glutathione, then the T cell the Th1 hands off to Th2 sooner. Th2 also has that same ability to recognize a pattern in a protein structure, but it's not as good at keeping the memory of it. So what happens is it might have a similar protein that it sees that thinks it's a foreign thing, but it's not. It's your own body's tissues. If it's a synovial membrane that it starts attacking, you come down with a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis. If it's connective tissues that it's attacking, you come down with a diagnosis of scleroderma or lupus. If it's some part of your spinal cord that it's reacting to, you could come down with a diagnosis of Parkinson's or ALS or these other very serious neurological autoimmune diseases. If it's the thyroid gland it reacts to, that's Hashimoto's, or there's other syndromes as well. So we've seen the incidence of autoimmune disease increase by hundreds, and in some cases 1,000% since the mid last century. We've seen the incidence of things like autism and Alzheimer's and these kinds of things, cardiovascular diseases, cancers, metabolic disorders. All of these things are epidemic currently today. It's no wonder the life expectancy is going backwards. Our body is struggling to maintain the balance that it was created to maintain, that our DNA tells it to maintain. In fact, we produce less and less glutathione as we get older. However, the DNA doesn't say to do that. The DNA knows that we produce glutathione inside the cells. And we produce enough according to what we need because it's on a feedback loop. The body's constantly being told if there's not enough glutathione in a cell, it triggers the genes to build more. So you don't produce less and less as you get older. What happens? Why do we produce less and less? Because we live in the modern world. Back in ancient times, did people have to supplement glutathione? No. Because the heavy metal toxins weren't as pervasive as they are today. The forever chemicals weren't as pervasive as they are today. The things that block those genes, there's a series of genes, GCL genes, that actually build the glycine and glutamic acid and L-cysteine and put them all together to make glutathione. And those can become blocked by toxins. So what's in the world today? What's in our air, food, and water? Toxins. Another thing that can block those genes are deficiency of certain trace minerals. What's in our food? They lack trace minerals. So we live in a time where we have naturally run into a lot of compromise. And it's creating a big issue among so many things in our body. Our immune system runs at about half-mast because it's not getting the support it needs. Our guts tend to be leaky because of the food we eat and the glyphosates and the other toxins in the food. The livers tend to be overrun by all kinds of toxins. And so they're so busy that everything to do with the blood that the liver does, which includes hormone precursors, immune system precursors, enzymes, hormones, and getting the lipids right and cholesterol right and blood sugars right and all of those things, getting the viscosity right, your thickness, all of that. The liver just can't do what it was created to do. So we need companies like Numi. We need companies that are nutraceutical companies that give us the tools to be able to survive in a world that has challenged us to such a high degree that our life expectancy is actually dropping like a rock, that diseases that weren't so common 20, 30 years ago are becoming epidemic. And so when you go out and talk with people, know in your heart that you have something that helps the body to maintain the balance that the body needs to maintain. And that is a great dispensation. That's something that is mission worthy. So, there's many ways to consider. When I train, I like people to get in touch with their why. If your why doesn't make you cry, it's not strong enough. And even if you look around the world and you see how many people are sick, if you look at other families or friends and you talk with people, you start finding out how many people are sick, and many of them seriously sick. You start to realize maybe a little bit why you found Anumi, a little bit why you were guided to be here. And if you act upon that, you're following that why. And that's my encouragement to all of you tonight, because this all is changing, and it has to. We've gone backwards in health and wellness for the last, let's say, 100 years. And right now we're at a precipice where we can go one way or the other. And it's people like you and it's people like this community that allow the leverage to go the right direction. So God bless you guys for being here. God bless you guys for continuing to go out there and fight day in and day out and share the good word about Numi. So Michael, that was probably a kind of a synopsis of where that call was I did with Karen, but it probably wasn't exact, but I don't do exact.
You know what? That was absolutely brilliant. I wasn't present at the call that you did with Karen, but I'm so glad I was on this one. That I don't know many people who could have covered it as well as you did, particularly because you are in the space you've been in all these years. So I think that's brilliant. It's the battle that's been going on for many years with pharmaceuticals. So thank you. I think this was a brilliant event. Type in the chat if you agree, guys. I think that was absolutely fantastic information. We have live streamed that onto YouTube on the channel, so you can play it back. And I think it's a valuable call to get lots of people to wake up and have a listen to where we're at. I love it.